Okay, so I'm going to present, a debate that came up with the making of Chandigarh in the last few years, and I'll try and do that the best I can. But you may all know Chandigarh from its master plan. I'll just introduce briefly the master plan. This is the city plan as you know it. Chandigarh is located here in northern India and was made in the 1950s because of the partitioning of India into two countries. And there was a state capital of Punjab, which lost its capital. And that is what had to be redone. Through a variety of circumstances, ultimately it was Le Corbusier who ended up making the master plan. And the master plan that you see is this one over here. And what it is essentially is the capital in the north. Sorry, for some reason, I'm going to try and see if this works. Okay. So Corbusier ended up making the master plan, which is essentially the capital in the north. And the city is laid out as a grid, as you can see, which is designed for, the 7 Vs and the Athens Charter that it is based on. And it has 2 intermittent rivers, one here and one here on the other side. And there's a third river which goes down the middle. As you can see in the master plan, besides these neighborhoods, what the city also has in its plan are these green belts, which were supposed to go all down the middle. And as per the 7 Vs of the Athens Charter, etc., these are supposed to be the recreational zones, places for people to walk around. And that's the general reading of the plan, which can be further described in this way. And it continues over here. This is how the plan looks like when it is filled out. It has not. Has it moved onto the next slide? Yeah. Okay. Good. That it looks like when it's filled out. It is a fully developed master plan over here, and the fundamental force of the entire plan is this the neighborhood that you are seeing. It has to move on to the next slide. Okay, is this a neighborhood unit which has all the vehicular transportation systems at the edges with very highly controlled access points and all the housing in the interior, which makes it into a very safe, internalized environment. And the city is, fully occupied at this point. Low density in these pictures, but you can see the grand Corbusier buildings in the back. But the main point that I'm trying to get to is that if this is the original master plan, if you see the small little thing in the middle of my slide, actually this is the sort of growth zone all around which we are seeing today. These are all planned, projected growth areas. The original plan of Chandigarh was intended to hold a population about 400,000. There was an expanded phase, which was expanded to hold about 800,000. Currently, the population of Greater Chandigarh, with all the sort of townships that have been built around it, are close to about 1.5 million. And there is, as you can see in these drawings, this extensive growth, which is planned to continue all around in the region. And that is, the thing that we were looking at when I took a series of studios in Chandigarh. I was born and I was brought up in Chandigarh. The city that I showed you in the previous slides is the one that I remembered. But in the last 20 years, with the rise of neoliberalism and the globalization, there has been a huge amount of pressure for growth on the city, and which is mostly because Chandigarh is successful, because it is a city which has extremely high real estate values compared to a lot of other areas around in northern India. And that is producing growth all around. And the growth is increased because the response of the Chandigarh administration to all this growth is to make a heavy preservation plan. Basically, the entire city's administration and architects in the discussion is focused on how to preserve the city. As you know, it has been entered into the UNESCO World Heritage, but only as part of Corbusier's oeuvre, which, unlike Brasilia, where you are, where the whole city has been entered into UNESCO. Here in Chandigarh, they have resisted entering the whole city. It's only the particular areas in red in this plan that have been preserved. And there is constant discussion about whether the rest of the city, what should be the relationship between, the market economics of the city, which are extremely high, and the preservation plan, and how the two of those should relate. This is the ongoing discussion. And because nothing really highly transformative can happen within the city, which is why the area outside the legal city now being developed by administrations, not those of the Chandigarh administration, but those of the state governments of Punjab and Haryana, who are capitalizing on this position in Chandigarh. And so when we went to India, our question was that what is the design that is being taking place in the peripheral areas, in all these areas, and how can, and then the thing that we found, of course, was all this external development is taking place, is designing as per the neoliberal real estate logics. Most of it is being done, a lot of it is being done out of Singapore through the big firms like Jurong Construction and RPG and so on. And all of it is designed to produce neighborhoods as per those logics. And our question simply was that if the growth outside Chandigarh is inspired by the successes of Chandigarh, why is it not that the design DNA, the modernist design DNA, is not being readapted into contemporary conditions? And what is the relationship between the two? And we did a series of things around that. So it was as a part of this process when we were going through this that something unusual happened. Now, if you don't mind, I'm just going to skip over the history portion of this and go simply to the heart of the matter. What happened was that there was a massive development that was proposed over here, just north of the capital complex. And this was a series of 14 towers that were designed to be built in this area over here. And this case went to the Supreme Court of India. And they basically ruled that, well, Chandigarh and the Capitol buildings are only 40, 50 years old. This was before it acquired UNESCO heritage. And therefore, and since the land belongs to legally purchased authorities, they can go ahead and build. And so there was an organization created to resist this. And what happened was that there, as you can see perhaps in this drawing over here, this this over here, if you read it, it says Sukhna Wildlife Sanctuary. It just happened to be an area north of the city, which is a preserve for wildlife. Now, so in India, you can, under legal systems, preserve zones for wildlife, but you can't preserve modernist cities. So a different logic was used to say, well, what is important is to preserve the wildlife, therefore you have to run down the development. So an environmental impact statement was created, and that's how we came into the discussion. And I would like to show you a little bit of what we learned in the process of doing that. So if you see, this is the plan that I've shown, and here is a drawing that shows the kind of actual way in which the plan sits in the city. What you have behind, are all my red marks still on the page, or have they gone away? They're all gone, right? Yeah, good. So you see that it has these mountains in the back, and these are the Shivalik hills. These are the lowermost reaches of the Great Grand Himalayas, which has rise up to 28,000 feet with Mount Everest. So they are the lowermost reaches of that. And therefore, Chandigarh sits right at the foothills of the Himalayas. And what that does is that it very significantly impacts the ecological construction of the site. Originally Chandigarh was intended to have this kind of peripheral zone all around the city, which was intended to be preserved as a kind of a land which was not to be touched, but because of a series of political and legal reasons, the actual boundary was shrunk down to that small area in the middle, this yellow colored area. And so that the development goes on the outside. So we started to look at the environmental impact statement, and clearly what came first of all, as you can see from these two drawings on the right-hand side, is that the hydrologics of the place were clearly critical, because although there isn't a major river of any kind that goes through the city, it is the flow of water, and there's a sort of a 3% general slope of the area, which is critical, which you can see, Chandigarh is located about here. No, sorry, about here. I'm trying to approximate it there. And there is this Bhakra river system, which I show you in this old photograph of when Chandigarh was made. The capital is over here, you can see that. And over here, you see this river system, which goes past the capital. And the fact that there is a very close relationship between the mountains and the flow of water and the organization of the city is also evident in this old model with exaggerated heights that was made when Chandigarh was being built, in which you can see a dramatic and clear relationship between how water flows down these hills and how it flows, therefore, into and through the city. Now, what you can also see in this model is that they actually constructed a dam over here, right? And this dam was used to make this artificial lake, which you see on the right-hand side. And this lake has proved to be extremely successful. And this lake and its relationship to the area to the north, which has a lot of migratory birds as they travel from north to south and south to north. They travel, and this is one of the midpoints in their journeys. All this logic was used to create the environmental preservation plan. But we started to look at the water situation over here to try and understand what's going on here. And the key problem with this lake, of course, is that because of its relationship, because of the situation, it silts up very quickly, right? When you create a dam, it starts silting up. And the issue is what is to be done about this siltation, and whether that is going to, that became the focus of the environmental system. Now, building dams was, of course, a important part of the mission by which Chandigarh was made. It was the 1950s, and Nehruvian India was bootstrapping its way into modernity, into industrialization, really. And these massive TVA kind of state enterprise inspired hydroelectric powers, dams were famously labeled by Jawaharlal Nehru as the temples of modern India. This whole aspect that they would, control. This is the Bhakra Dam over here. And that it creates these huge lakes right at the very foothills of the Himalayas, and there are hundreds and thousands of these, being not hundreds and thousands, so sort of producing a huge amount of electricity that impacts the situation in very significant ways. Now, what happens over here? What I'm trying to show somehow, if I can find the relevant set of drawings. So it has this, it creates these dams, and what it is, the situation essentially what it is that it is, see, that is where Chandigarh is located. If you see it in the Himalayas, is that it is located at the very front hills of the Himalayas, right? The Himalayas go over here, and then there are these small fields. And in fact, if you look at the, if you look at these sections and drawings, these sort of geological drawings over here, Chandigarh is in fact located some about here in this area over here. And what it is that this is the actual erosion field, the tectonic forces which created the Himalayas. Below here is the South Asian plate, which is subducting down into the Asian plate, which causes the uprising, which creates the Himalayas. And the Shivalik hills are what they call, these are actually uplifts, these hills directly above the plan, these ones right over our next plane, these are uplifts of the erosion fields from the Himalayas. All right, so the collision of the South Asian plate into the Asian plate, which is a 40 million year process, has created an erosion field, which if you look over here, this field over here can be as much as 1 kilometer deep, over 1,000 meters deep. So what happens is that when the city is being built and they create these dams, the ecology of this area is such that they are fighting a process of erosion, which is millions of years in the making, and is at the very foothills of the Himalayas. So it's at the very first thing that is going to be eroded. So in fact, our conclusion is that the siltation of this lake that we are looking at over here is a foregone thing. There is no way to stop it, which is also what we have found in the big hydroelectric projects which have been located in the foothills of the Himalayas. They silt up, and we have So with this understanding, we actually went back again and tried to look at the sort of logics of the original master plan that Corbusier laid out. And you see one of the interesting things, actually, see if you can see it maybe a little more clear. Here's an original archival drawing, is that, he has the two intermittent rivers very carefully laid out over here. He has these other rivers over here, and this goes down here. And the main city is very carefully nestled in between. And another major arterial which has also been articulated over here. And in fact, then if you look carefully in the plan, all these green belts which are going through the city, you see all these things over here, which are described as being pedestrian systems, green belts, leisure valleys, supposed to enable bicycle paths to go into the city. In fact, they are also prescient hydrological pathways. You can be seeing that sooner or later, this site goes through 100-year flood cycles, when water is going to, because of the ecology of the site, is going to be set up in such a way that so they can also be read as hydrological systems. So basically, the point that I am trying to make over here briefly is that that there is a certain reading in the original DNA of the design which is anticipatory of the hydrologics and erosion field of the site, which runs contrary to how the city has been actually developed, and which is the preservation argument which is completely missed by these systems by which only focus on the architecture and urbanism in a very limited way, and what the impact of all this is going to be on the sort of grand developments that are planned, that I showed you earlier over here, is the question that we tried to raise, that if we are going to say that the capital needs to be preserved because of environmental protection reasons, then actually the logic at play is so much larger and would be usefully integrated into the development plans that are being proposed by the various authorities that are planning to build all around Chandigarh. So that's all I have. Thank you very much. I don't have the history presentation. I could have that, but that's a sort of a standard history. This is just fresh research that we just recently did, which I'm about to publish sometime soon. Thank you very much.